morning, everyone. Today, my class is on periimplantitis, its prevalence, practical treatment, and prevention. I'm Dr. Parthiban, Department of Periodontics, to take this class. Today, my class is going to be about periimplantitis, periimplant mucositis, prevalence, pathogenesis, diagnosis, and the treatment for periimplantitis and perimucositis and the maintenance therapy. When we see the periodontal anatomy for a normal tooth and an implant surface, for a normal tooth, we can see a periodontal ligament between the tooth surface and the alveolar bone. For an implant, we can see the alveolar bone osseointegrated with the implant surface. Dental implants is a very successful dental treatment. Around 4 lakh implants were placed per year in India and 1 lakh implants placed in the European Union. Although complete failure rate of implant is less than 5%, there are high incidence of implantitis. So the industry and the research focus on stabilization, enhancing supporting structures, thus reducing the failures of the implants. This slide shows initial disease progression around the implant, where we can see a marginal bone loss seen around the implants. This slide shows further progression of radiolucency, showing increase in bone loss and more threads of implants. In this slide, we can see the disease progression to severe condition, exposing the complete implant surface detached with the bone. When we see clinically, we can see increase in probing depth around the implant surface. And swelling and inflammation around the tooth which was placed under the implant. This condition is called periimplantitis. Periimplantitis, by definition, is a destructive inflammatory process affecting the soft and hard tissue around the osseointegrated implants, leading to the formation of a periimplant pocket and loss of supporting bone. It was given by Mobelli at the year 1987. Another condition is called as periimplant mucositis. It, the presence of inflammation is confined to the soft tissues around the implant and no sign of bone loss in this condition. The presence of probing depth is less than 4 mm with bleeding or little separation. This condition is a reversible condition. The dark side of implant is the incidence of the periimplant mucositis and periimplantitis is as 47 percentage after implant placement. So it's professionally challenging to treat the periimplantitis and to make a implant therapy a successful therapy. Although periimplantitis is a disease affecting the implant surface and the alveolar bone, it has many similarities with the periodontal disease. It has a host response to the bacterial insult, and the initial event is inflammation of pocket epithelium without connective tissue or bone destruction, same as periodontal gingival diseases, and it is a reversible condition. Later, it causes severe chronic inflammation, same like that of periodontitis. This slide shows the clinical and radiographic picture of a periimplantitis, where there is a probing depth of more than 4 mm. Suppuration will be seen on a clinical examination. And we can see a radiograph picture which show bone loss around the implant. Talking about the prevalence of the periimplantitis, it has a wide range from 4.7 percentage to 36 percentage. Factors such as smoking, diabetes, previous periodontal disease increase the prevalence of this disease. The pathogenesis of the periimplantitis starts in the junction between the margin implant surface and the soft tissue attachment around it. Initially, the pathogenesis progresses as periimplant mucositis. The plaque formation and the formation of biofilm is seen around the implant, usually of gram-negative, and it is anaerobic. The inflammatory inflammation occurs in the connective tissue, such as neutrophils and lymphocytes, are seen in the disease condition, causing inflammation around the margins of the implant. Later, it develops more inflammatory and causing a bacterial infection, inflammatory driven destruction of the implant supporting apparatus. These inflammatory cell infiltrate more severe around the implants, and the rate of disease also progress very fast, causing implant mobility. The difference between the periimplantitis and the periodontitis is the periimplant surface will have less collagen fiber orientation and less vasculature compared to that of periodontal ligament. So there is a faster pattern of tissue destruction with periimplantitis. Let's see about the etiological factors for periimplantitis. One of the etiological factors is patient related. Patients who have systemic disease like diabetes are more prone to periimplantitis, and the patient having history of periodontal disease are more prone to periimplantitis. Social factors such as poor oral hygiene, smokers, and heavy alcohol consumptions also affect the periimplant health. Parafunctional habits like bruxism and malocclusion can also cause periimplantitis. Genetic factor, there is a significant correlation with the interleukin 1 gene polymorphism and periimplantitis are studied. Markers of elastase and alkaline phosphatase may be helpful in future diagnosis of bone destruction. Some of the implant design also cause a periimplantitis. Smooth implants are less osseointegrated compared to the rough surface implants. Smooth cervical collars have more adaptation with the soft tissue compared to the rough cervical borders. And if the thread design is active, there is more osseointegration compared to a passive thread design. And the implant design, the connections also plays an important role in the periimplantitis. Abutments, angulated abutments, straight abutments, external legs, internal legs of the implants attract more microorganisms, thereby causing periimplantitis. This picture, we can see a rough surface implant which has a more bone loss compared to the smooth marginal contour which has less bone loss seen in radiographically. We'll see about the restorative problems which causes periimplantitis. Some of the improper prosthetic design and occlusal scheme causes periimplantitis. Improper fit of abutment, loosening of abutment causes periimplantitis. Premature loading or immediate loading or over torquing also causes periimplantitis. When the implants are connected with natural tooth also causes periimplantitis. In this picture, we can see a restorative failure causing a periimplantitis. This slide shows mechanical failures like abutment getting loose and causing a periimplantitis. And there are chances of implant breakage also, which also causes periimplantitis. This fractured implant are very difficult to retrieve and they have some implant retrievers to retrieve the implants. And loosening of the abutment screws due to the improper prosthetics also causes periimplantitis. This picture you can see loosening of abutment screw causes bone loss around the implant. Sometimes the retained cement like GAC, luting GAC causes bone loss leading to periimplantitis. So we have seen the some of the factors which causes periimplantitis. Now we'll see the surgical errors which causes periimplantitis. Improper angulation of the implant causes periimplantitis. When the implant is not properly angulated, we can't restore it to get it as a functional unit. It also, if it is restored functionally, there are high chances of implant failure. After you place an implant, we need to attain a primary stabilization. If there is a lack of primary stabilization, or if you can't attain a primary stabilization, there are high chances of periimplantitis. And if there is a improper flap design, which can also lead to periimplantitis. when there is a overeating bone drilling procedures without proper irrigation or lengthier time of procedure can also cause us periimplantitis. Sometimes there is some compromise condition like inadequate buccal bone or inadequate lingual plate. If we place an implant in this condition, it surely goes for a periimplantitis. So compromised bone or inadequate bone, or if there is an inadequate attached gingiva present, also causes periimplantitis. In this picture, you can see two implants are placed very close. This type of placement causes bone loss, lead to periimplantitis. So there should be a proper space between the two implants or between the tooth and the implant. This slide shows there is an inadequate attached gingiva. When we restore the tooth in this type of inadequate attached gingiva, there are more chances of implant visibility, which can attract plaque and calculus, which may further lead to periimplantitis. And if the implant is placed apically or if it is buccally placed, if it is not properly placed, and if the restoration is not properly done, it can lead to periimplantitis. In this picture, we can see a implant which is placed more buccally and more apically due to the availability of bone in that region. This may go for high chances of periimplantitis. If you buccally place an implant or lingually place an implant for attaining a primary stability, and if it is not properly, regenerative procedures have not been done properly without any graft or anything, this may go for periimplantitis. So we have to prevent a periimplantitis, that we have to have a proper diagnosis. We have to probe all the implant surfaces with plastic probes, and we have to check for bleeding or suppuration. And after a year, X-rays has to be compared with the baseline placement, and every year there should be an evaluation of occlusion and a prosthetic stability is there. Next, we go for the treatment options for periimplantitis. Best treatment is early detection of periimplantitis. If there is an early detection of periimplantitis or a periimplant mucositis, proper oral hygiene and regular oral hygiene measures can prevent to form a periimplantitis. And if it forms, then we have to go for two types of treatment. One is non-surgical intervention. Second one is surgical intervention. We'll see about the both. Non-surgical is mechanical debridement with plastic instruments and chlorhexidine irrigation. And we can use adjunctive use of generalized antibiotics can be used. Plastic curettes are available for doing a mechanical debridement around the implant surface. Metal curettes or metal contact should be avoided for debridement. It may lead to the disruption of the implant thread, which may cause periimplantitis. and we can do some local drug delivery like application of minoxidil spheres along with the debridement, which also provides some additional benefit to reduce bleeding and probing in the initial stage of periimplantitis. So now we see about the peri-implant treatment, surgical treatments. For a surgical treatment, we have to visualize the peri-implant site. For that, we have to do a open flap surgery to visualize the how much damage of how much loss of bone has been happened around the implant for correct treatment plan. So there should be a full thickness flap has to be elevated, and we have to visualize the implant site. And if there is an bone defect such as crater which causes a resorption, the bone crater has to be resected, and we have to do a one wall or two wall defects has to be completely flattened so that the periimplantitis will be avoided. Next is regenerative surgery. Combination of bone grafting with debridement and antibiotics shows significant reduction of bone loss. And in some condition, we can do a implantoplasty where we can reduce the length of the implant and we can place the abutment and over which the crown can be fixed. It reduces the periimplantitis. We have special instruments to do the implantoplasty, and it should be properly done to have a high success. So this is how the non-surgical treatment progresses. Initially, probing, if there is probing depth is seen, we have to elevate the flap in a surgical condition, and we have to decontaminate with antibiotic solution, antiseptics. Then debridement has to be done, which reduces the periimplantitis, leading to bone growth around the implants. When you place graft material, we need some osteoconductive or osteoinductive materials for successful regeneration. Autografts will have high success rate. Next is xenografts. And when the grafts are placed along with PRP, endogain or collagen matrix, there are high success rate of regeneration happening around the implants. We have to debride the implant surface and we have to isolate the debrided surface. Then after that, we have to place the graft around the implant surface, completely covering the threads of the implant. Then we have to suture it back. This gives wonderful result for this and a high success. Autografts provide high success compared to the other grafts for regenerative procedures. Next, we see about the retrograde periimplantitis. What is a retrograde periimplantitis? When the implantitis occur at the base of the implant, causing a bone defect around the base of the implant, it is called retrograde periimplantitis. Normally, when there is a periapical pathology and if the implant is placed along with the periapical pathology, there are high chances of this retrograde periimplantitis. If a tooth is removed with a periapical periodontitis and if it is not properly debrided and if an implant is placed on that region, there are high chances of this retrograde periimplantitis. We can just see thin visualization of the implants from outside the gingiva. But when we open the flap, we can see more threads exposed at the apical region of the implants. This causes failure of implants. So it has to be properly debrided and the adjacent surface has to be also properly debrided. No granulation tissue should be present. Then grafting can be done and suture can be placed. Next is laser therapy. Area laser can be used for disinfection of implant and 6 months later we can see the equal reduction of pocket and clinical attachment attained in the periimplantitis site. This is a laser assisted procedure. When there is a increased probing depth, lasers should be used to take out the granulation tissue formed around the implant surface, and then debridement has to be done, irrigation has to be done, and suturing can be done. This causes a new attachment process around the implants. Next is maintenance. We have three types of patients: low risk patients, moderate risk patient, high risk patient. When the patient is having one implant or two implant and is having periimplantitis on one implant surface, is considered as low risk patient. This patient should be evaluated every 6 months to prevent the progression of the disease condition. Moderately risk patients have more than 3 implants and less than 6 implants and have more surfaces compared to the low risk patients. They should be examined every 3 months to prevent the periimplantitis. Next is high risk patient. These have complete rehabilitation of more than 6 implants. They should be evaluated every 2 to 3 months if there is a prevalence of periimplantitis. Oral hygiene plays an important role in causing the periimplant diseases. So oral hygiene measures has to be properly maintained to prevent the periimplantitis in the maintenance phase. So prevention is the first step. We have to avoid the condition that contributes to the poor results and periimplantitis. We can't take all the patients for placing an implant. If the patient is not medically fit, we should not consider him for implants. Choose cases where you have excellent chance of implant and prosthetic success. If there is bone loss or any defects, implants should not be placed. This leads to periimplantitis. Thank you.